All right, everyone, we're going to get started as people trickle in. My name is Terry Malone. I'm the director of the Undergraduate Admissions Office. I'd like to first just start off by saying congratulations to the admitted students. We had a record number of applications this year, and you were among some very talented students that we looked at, and we were proud to be able to offer you a spot at Clark University for the fall. And that congratulations extends to the families that supported students over the last 4 years, which were probably some of the most trying 4 years that students could have to their high school career. So you all should be very proud of your accomplishments and the accomplishments of your children. Tonight I'm joined by Jennifer Lawton, who is the director of our financial aid office. And we're going to talk about understanding the financial aid award that we have sent to you and how that will work and what the next steps are if you decide you want to come to Clark. Jennifer, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, as everybody said, my name is Jennifer Lawton. I'm the Director of Financial Assistance at Clark. I started about 2.5 years ago, right before the pandemic hit. So it's been a very interesting few years to be working in the financial aid field. And I feel really lucky to be able to work with families such as yours to try to figure out how to make your child's college goals a reality.
Excellent. And I should have done this first, but just to test that you can actually hear us, can you put in the chat where you're from tonight? Wait, where are you? Where do you call home? All right, we've got Minnesota, we've got New York City, we've got Brooklyn, we've got Maine, we've got lots of Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Connecticut. Someone joining us all the way from Nepal. We have New Orleans, we have Greece. A couple California, excellent. We're so happy that you joined us, whatever time of day it is for you, and wherever you are. We really do appreciate you taking the time to learn a little bit from us. We are going to do a very short presentation, but we find the most value for this presentation actually comes through the question and answer period at the end. Well, I just asked you to use the chat. When we do get to the question and answer period, we'll be using the Q&A, which you'll be able to find in your Zoom settings, and you can just put your questions there. You can put them there while we're talking. We will wait until the end to answer them, but if the question jumps into your head, go ahead and put it in at that time and we will get to them. All right, and I'm going to hand it over to Jennifer.
Okay, thank you. So we just have a really short agenda, as Terry mentioned. We're really here. We really like to have your questions drive a lot of what we're talking about tonight. It seems to be the best use of time. I will note, though, I saw that it looks like we might have a few international students. Some of my comments might be a little bit more geared towards students, US students, than international. So feel free to put your specific questions in the chat. If it's really of a personal nature, we're going to give you some options for talking with one of us privately a little bit later on in the presentation. So we're going to look a little bit at understanding your financial aid award letter. We're going to talk a little bit about determining what your costs are after financial aid is applied. We're going to give a little preview of some of your payment options, and then we're going to give you a timeline for paying your bill. So understanding your financial aid award, there are basically a couple of different sort of categories of financial aid. The first category is scholarships and grant aid, also known as gift aid. It's called gift aid because it doesn't have to be paid back. It's a gift. The types of aid that you might find under this are merit scholarships from the college or university, a university need-based grant, and then also the state and federal governments also have grants. In Massachusetts, we have a pretty robust state grant. And of course, there are also the federal Pell grants and the federal SEOG grants, supplemental educational opportunity grants. All of those fall under the category of gift aid. You actually use the, my colleagues in admissions decide your merit scholarship based on the strength of the application. The folks in my office using the FAFSA and the profile determine the university grant, the state grants, and the federal grants. The other broad category is self-help, and basically those are aid categories where the student has an investment. So one would be the Stafford Loans. They're still financial aid, even though they're loans, because the interest rates are quite low. And there are many, many ways in which you can actually have those Stafford loans forgiven after graduation, depending on what you do for a living, that kind of thing. They're also very flexible in repayment. So for instance, for this past 22 months now, nobody in the United States has had to make a payment on their Stafford loans, either the student Stafford loan or the Parent Plus loan, if they didn't want to or couldn't, and no interest is accrued. So, there aren't many other loan products that are like that. So they are considered a form of financial aid. And then the other award under that category is work study. So the student is working and earning some money to help pay for some of those items that are not covered, that are not billed to them, that are things that incidental expenses, book, maybe an extra book, maybe some printer ink, maybe some pizza with your friends on the weekend. Some of those incidental expenses we all know that go along with being a college student. Determining your costs. So basically, it's a math equation. Your total cost of attendance minus so total cost of attendance, actually a little bit of misnomer here, but when we're figuring out the bill, it's basically your billed fees, which is your tuition, room and board, and any fees, minus your merit scholarship, minus any of those gift grants that we just talked about, minus your loan, equals your cost. Notice that we did not list federal work study there or work study in general there. That's because your student would find a job on campus and then get a paycheck every other week, direct deposited to whatever account that they've bank account they've indicated it should go to for their own use in covering some of those costs that we talked about that are not billed. Next slide. Okay, payment options. So there are a couple different options here. You may or may not know that we are a semester-based school. So you're going to get billed for the fall semester in the summer, and then the spring semester you'll get billed for in December. You could choose to pay whatever your portion of the bill is going to be each semester. If you have those funds in hand, you could just make one payment each semester to cover the bill. You could choose to each semester do a 4 or 5 month interest-free monthly payment plan. So say if you were going to owe $5,000 for the semester, you could choose to make 5 $1,000 payments for the fall, and then you would have a similar amount due for the spring. So you'd also agree to make another, 5 $1,000 payments for the spring. You could decide to pay the bill entirely with loans. Maybe you don't have a lot of free cash right now. We all know it's been a difficult couple of years. So parents can actually borrow a federal Parent Plus loan. I already mentioned it, but it's the sister loan to the federal direct student loan that's on the award letter. It also carries with it a lot of flexibility in repayment. Nobody in the United States has had to make a repayment on these loans for the last 24 months. With the Parent Plus loan, you can actually borrow the cost of attendance minus any other aid. You can borrow the difference so that you can borrow plenty to cover the bill if that's what you choose to do. And then the other, the one that we always list last is a private loan. And we list it last because it's a loan in the student's name. It basically is a loan that they have to have a creditworthy cosigner in order to borrow the loan, because of course most students at 18 don't have much of a credit score. Private loans are from banks, so you may have already started getting some, flyers in the mail or mailers in the mail, advertising various bank loans to help bank loans to help with your education expenses. You have to be a little bit careful with these because they are in the student's name. We do have a few students every year whose families are financially secure, who really like the interest rates that are provided by these private loans. They're quite low. And so they tend to borrow a bit more of those loans. And it looks a little bit like, it looks like it could be a pretty big payment on the other side, but they know that they're doing that, making a choice to borrow those private loans because they plan to pay them off right after school. For most students who have to make those payments themselves, you want to be really careful about how much borrowing you're doing. We do design our packages at Clark so that most students can graduate with just the federal direct student loans that are in their award. And also with that, whatever help the parents are expected to give after we do our calculation of the income and assets. So our average federal loan indebtedness at graduation is right around $24,000 to $25,000. So that's pretty manageable as a new graduate. The reality is that very few families use only one or the other of these options. Many families use a little bit of each. They might pay, if they have a $5,000 bill each semester, they might pay $1,000 out of their savings account. They might do a payment plan for $3,000, and then they might take a loan for $1,000. They do a little. They decide what works for their family, for their goals. We can help you work that through if you need some help with that. But it really is not one size fits all. And for families that have parents who are separated or divorced, both parents could make payments via any one of these options. Both parents can take federal loans as well. So timeline. So a $250 non-refundable enrollment deposit is due by May 1st. The bill for the fall semester is going to be available a little bit later in June. It'll be, we changed our scheduling just a little bit this summer. The bill for the fall will need to be settled by the end of July, and I'll talk a little bit about what settled means in a minute. The orientation is late August, and then the first day of classes is August 29th. So when we talk about the bill needing to be settled by mid-July, it doesn't mean that we have to have, obviously we don't have all the payments if you're making a payment plan. And it doesn't mean that if you're planning to take a loan, that all the funds are already on campus and on your bill by mid-July. We actually can't even do that. We can't disperse those funds until closer to the beginning of the first day of class. But you should have already done your loan applications. We should have already certified those loans for you, and we need to know that the loan is approved. And as long as we know that the loan is approved, then your bill would be considered settled. So you just have to, you don't necessarily have to have everything paid to the penny by the date of the bill due date, but you need to have made arrangements for it, either through a monthly payment plan or a bill, or a loan, or, of course, some people will also just pay the bill in full. Please do yourselves and your students a favor by really sticking to that bill due date and getting things settled by then. Every year we have some families who, are a little bit worried about how they're going to make this happen and maybe don't pick up the phone and give us a call or email us, and they wait until really close to the first day of classes. And what happens at that point is, as much as we want to have great customer service all the time, we have a hard time making sure that we can get everything done for everybody that needs to get done in that very compressed time that leads up to the first day of classes. So if you can try to, remember to pick up the phone and ask those questions before the bill is due, we can help walk you through whatever process you want to pursue. And that way you'll have a much less stressful end of August. It'll give you much more time to sort of help your child make those final arrangements for outfitting the room and making the trek here to Clark to get moved in. It'll be much less stressful if you can make those arrangements to pay the bill by the due date. So that's it for us. I'm sure you have plenty of questions. So
we already do have some questions in the Q&A. So like I said earlier, please put your questions in the Q&A and we'll just go through them and we'll basically stay here until you're out of questions. That's not completely true. We do have an 8 o'clock stop time, but we are here to answer those questions. So Jennifer, the first question, the student received the physical letter for their merit award, but the family has not received anything about their need-based award. How would students have been notified about that?
So you would have gotten, a little bit depends on when you were admitted. Early on in the process, you would have gotten, if you had said yes, you were applying for financial aid and you had provided either the FAFSA. Well, everybody had to provide the FAFSA. Some people also had to provide the profile. If you had given us both those documents, you might have gotten a paper letter. after the early January, we were actually notifying people online of what their award was, and the student would have gotten an email directly with a link that they clicked on, and they could actually see the award letter that way. So I think my advice to you would be to contact our office tomorrow, or email us at FinAid, which is displayed to you right now, finaid@clarku.edu, and we can look that up for you and figure out what's going on.
Excellent, thank you. I'm going to expand this question a little bit because I think there's a logical second question. What GPA is required to keep merit aid awards each year? So can you just talk more broadly about what the requirements are to stay eligible for merit and need-based aid?
So I'll talk a little bit about aid in general, because it's the same for both merit aid and gift aid and federal loans and everything. What we're talking about is something called Financial Aid Satisfactory Academic Progress, affectionately called SAP. This is an assessment of both the pace towards graduation and the GPA, minimum GPA requirements each year. It's a little bit separate than any kind of academic progress that you'd be monitored for through the Dean of Students office. This is financial aid related only. And basically in financial aid land, you have to, for federal purposes, you have to maintain a 2.0 GPA, and you have to complete, in other words, get a grade for at least 67% of the courses that you've attempted. So, but the good news is, many students might have a little rocky start, or, during the pandemic, a lot of students, it was a bit of a switch to get used to doing online courses. So many students took a few more W's than they might normally. So as long as you're doing a 2.0 and you're making that pace, you're completing at least 67% of the courses that you're attempting, then there's no problem with your financial aid. Your financial aid continues from year to year as normal. If you fall a little short in either one of those measures, we will send you a letter letting you know that you didn't make SAP, and here are your options. And one of the options is to go ahead and appeal for a probation semester of financial aid. And so once you do that, it's approved, as long as you're continuing to make some progress. And by that I mean, if you were at a 1.89 GPA and we had to put you on SAP, we gave you a semester of probation, and then that semester you didn't quite make 2.0, but you did make 1.95. Well, we'll give you another semester of SAP probation until you get over that 2.0. So there's a lot of, it's not really meant to be punitive. It's meant to help students succeed and reach their goals of having a good GPA and graduating more or less on time. So we like to think about it that way, and we try to approach it that way when we work with students about it. We have very few students who go on financial aid probation and don't improve at least a little bit. If you don't improve a little bit, we cannot give you aid the next semester. But like I said, I think there's only one student this year who wasn't able to improve at least a little bit. So there's lots of latitude there for improvement. So
excellent.
I know it's complicated, but
there's a couple questions.
Concept. Sorry,
there's a couple of questions about work study. If a student was not awarded work study in their need-based award, can they still work on campus?
So the good news is that Clark, you absolutely can. That's not the case at all schools, but at Clark, you absolutely can. In fact, our non-work study student employment budget is much larger than our federal work study and student employment budget. So we make available in August each year a job board called Handshake. You look over those notices. They're typically posted there by various offices on campus who are looking for some student help. I'm gonna tell you, it's a bit of a skirmish at the beginning of the semester trying to get that first job. So apply early and often. Follow up with people. Make sure that maybe you put a few, if you don't have one already, put a bit of a resume together, even if you haven't worked in a paying job before. If you have volunteered or held a leadership position in a school club, you have information that you can use to your advantage on a resume. Our Career Connections office will also be available in the late summer to help students who don't already have a resume. It's one of the really kind of nice services they do to help students sort of develop that very important tool that they'll all need when they graduate. And we'd like to start early with that. So yes, you definitely can work on campus even if you don't have work study.
Jennifer, I have two related but opposite questions. One family is wondering, when the admitted student is a sophomore, there will be a second child in college. And will we consider that when looking at financial aid? And then the opposite question of the older brother will be graduating next year. So for his sophomore year, he'll be the only one. So can you just talk about multiple children in college and how that gets reviewed?
So I'll just preface it by saying that some of you may have heard that they're planning to make some big changes to the FAFSA, and they'll no longer be asking that question about number of children in college. They have assured us that the underlying calculations and algorithms are such that most families would not see a real difference in their respective expected family contribution that's calculated by the FAFSA. That remains to be seen. But in general, what we do when we get the information on the forms from you is we calculate what your family can afford to pay. And when you have more than one child in college, that your ability to pay doesn't multiply. It basically divides. You have only so much you can pay, and now it's divided by 2 or sometimes 3 children. And so we do take that expected family contribution, we reduce it, and then we usually will increase need-based aid. Now, if you're a family who has a really high family contribution now of over $100,000, say, and we reduce it to $50,000, and Clark costs $62,000, then you're still not going to get need-based financial aid from us, because if you have any merit or your loans, it's going to cover what we call your financial need. But if you're a family of more moderate means and you're getting some Clark need-based grant from us now, and next year you're going to have another child in college, then yes, it's more likely that you'll get additional need-based aid. That's the Clark University grant that you see on your award letter now. Now, for the opposite situation, the opposite is true. When you only have one child in college, then the entire expected family contribution sort of attaches itself to that one child. But when we go to package, we generally try to soften that change. So let's just say that the year that you had 2 children in college, you had a $15,000 university need-based grant. And then when you dropped to 1 child in college, the calculation would say that you would not be eligible for any need-based aid. We typically will soften that. We cannot continue to give you 15,000, but we might give you 5 or 6 or 7. We try to soften that calculation so it's not such an abrupt change for you. We have adopted a new policy this year where if that other child ends up going on to grad school, we will actually include that child as 2 in college. So you would still get the benefit of having 2 in college. Previously, we did not count grad students as in college for purposes of coming up with the need-based grant. So that is one benefit for those of you that might be having a change, but that change is that student is just going to grad school instead. So again, if you have some concerns about that, you definitely can make an appointment and speak with one of our directors a little bit more about your situation in particular and how changes in number in college might affect you. We can't give you an exact dollar because so many things can change from one year to the next. You're going to do a FAFSA every year, and underlying things about income and assets can change quite a bit. But we can at least kind of give you an idea of what would happen in your case.
I have a couple of questions about both Stafford and PLUS loans. So we'll do the Stafford ones first.
Okay.
First, how do students apply for a Stafford loan? And if they have been awarded a Stafford loan in their need-based package that they already have, what steps do they need to do to actually accept that loan?
So that's a good question. So the application is actually the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. So once you do a FAFSA, we get that information back from them, and we use it as the basis of our award. So if you already have a federal direct student loan in your award, that means that you've passed all of the all of the certification type of questions that are on the FAFSA, and you are eligible. So the next steps would be Chelsea from my office will reach out to you over the summer, and she will direct you to go to a U.S. Department of Education website where you will do something called the Master Promissory Note and the entrance interview. The Master Promissory Note is a little bit like it sounds like. It's an electronic form that you're going to give some information on about, your address, the address of two people who might know where you are going to be after graduation. They're not promising to pay your bill for you, your loans for you. They're just to contact people in case the department can't find you when it comes time to repay. So you'll want to have that information available. We will repeat that in the email that we send you when we ask you to go ahead and do this task. And basically, that's the form where the student is going to sign electronically to allow the funds to be transferred to Clark to pay the bill. The other form is the entrance interview. And basically, it's not really a form. It's basically a little test. So the department wants to make sure that students know that when they're doing that master promissory note, that it's actually a loan and that it has to be paid back. So they do some education, and takes about 15 or 20 minutes. So the student should set aside a little bit of time to do it. And basically it kind of goes through, basic concepts about what a loan is, what loan repayment is, that kind of thing. So that the student understands what a loan is and that it has to be repaid when they're done. It's actually a really good tool because I think without it, students, some students might not realize what they're signing when they sign a master promissory note. So that will Chelsea will contact you late May, early June to do those things. You do them online, on the Department of Education website, and they let us know electronically that you have done them. We will also start sending out reminders to let you know that we are requesting that information, and we will continue to send those reminders until we get the information back from the department. If all goes smoothly and you do those things, then what happens is when the aid disperses to your bill right before the semester begins, your loans will just disperse as well, and then the university goes to the Department of Education and pulls down the money that actually funds your loan. So that you don't have to go to a bank, you don't have to get a check, you don't have to do any of that. It comes right to us. That's why it's called direct lending, sort of cut out the bank middlemen.
Excellent. And then, like I said, there's a couple of plus loan questions. How do students apply, or how do parents apply for the plus loan, and when should they do that in order to meet the mid-July due date?
Okay, so the plus loan, we might be changing our process, but if you go out now, you can look at our website. If you go out to our website and just type in plus loan, you'll see what our process is now. Right now, we're asking for a paper application, and then we put all your information into the Department of Education's website for you. We may change that so you could go directly to the Department of Education, but we'll keep you apprised of that. We definitely like to make the changes on our website in long before we ask you to go out, and start making these loan arrangements. But in general, like I said before, you can borrow up to the cost of education minus any other financial aid. You would indicate that to us. We typically don't want people to start doing those loan applications until early June-ish, like right around the time you get the bill, because you want to know for sure what the bill is before you apply for a loan for it. You have to remember with plus loan, there is a processing fee the government imposes of 4%. So if you want to end up with $10,000 to pay your bill, you need to borrow $10,400 in order to have enough net proceeds to pay your bill. And we can walk you through all this too when we get to that point. But you're going to want to be thinking about, if you haven't already thought about getting some paperwork to us, you're going to want to think about getting that to us right around the time you actually, the bill is available for you to view. And just a note about that really quickly, the students can see the bill right away. The students have to sign parents up to make them authorized viewers of the bill. Student accounts will be in touch with you directly about that and how that process happens. But at most schools, the billing goes directly to the student, and they have to give parents approval to actually view the bill. So that's one little detail that kind of surprises parents sometimes, families sometimes. So be thinking right around the time that you see the bill is the time to apply for those loans. We will have our correct process up on the website at that point, either a paper form to us, or we'll direct you out to the Department of Education's website. There is a credit check for the PLUS loan, but it's only a FICO score. It's not debt to income or anything like that. If you're not approved for the PLUS loan, your student automatically gets access for up to about $4,000 of additional unsubsidized loan in their own name, sort of automatically. And then we would have to look at some other options to help you figure out how to pay the rest of the bill.
Excellent. I'm going to take the next question. Is there a housing deposit above the $250 enrollment deposit? There is not. All you have to do to save your place at Clark is submit your $250 deposit. That does get credited towards your first bill. So when you get that bill in June, you'll already see a minus $250. You've started to pay for your Clark education. But you do not need to do a separate housing deposit. At Clark, we do require all of our students to live on campus, so we don't need students to do a deposit to tell us they're going to be doing that. So just the $250 is all you need. Jennifer, there's a couple questions about merit scholarships, and are they renewable, and can you confirm the GPA that you said earlier to keep that scholarship?
So it's a 2.0, keep a 2.0 or above, but no fear if there's a little bobble at the first year, because sometimes there is. We can remedy that. It's not like all or nothing. We can remedy it. And then the merit scholarships are for 4 years or 8 semesters.
Excellent. So a couple questions about this. The physical letter they received in the mail had the award, but not the costs. How do families determine what the costs are? Where can they find that information?
Okay. What you can do is just contact our office and we can send you one of the online versions of the letter, because that actually does the math for you. Please don't everybody call right at 8:30 tomorrow morning. You could also email us as well, but we'd be happy to. We've done that for a number of parents. We had hoped to get that online version, up and running at the very beginning of our processing in mid-November-ish, but it just couldn't happen. So we're happy to send out the version that actually gives you the and we also have an online expense planner calculator, which you probably should have put in here. But if you go to our website and type in online expense planner, it should take you right to it. And then what it has in there is the direct costs. So that's what you're going to get billed for. And then you pop in the information from your paper award letter, and it will calculate what's going to be due for the year. Remember, don't put in your work study. It won't let you anyway. It reminds you not to anyway, but that's another way that you can get there.
A couple more related questions about, is there any possibility of getting increased merit or need-based aid because they're having really good senior year, because of a job change, all kinds of different reasons. So what to do if a student wants to ask for more financial assistance? Sure.
So I think the thing to do is you can email us. Sorry, I sound like a broken record. A couple things. You can email us and we'll certainly discuss with you, how we manage appeals. You could make an appointment to speak with one of our directors. Everybody's really super friendly, and we're really happy to talk with you guys because, honestly, I've been working with these folks for a little bit less than 3 years, and they all really are committed to trying to help you understand how to do this, because we realize that, even for families that have had another child go through school, it can feel a little bit overwhelming. So you can talk with them directly about what your situation is. We can make some notes on your file. We can offer you, we have an appeal link that you would fill out. It's basically a really quick sort of Google-based form with several questions in it. Allows you to kind of free form tell us what's going on. It allows you to add some documents. I would encourage you, if you do get that appeal link, or if you have one now when you're thinking about how you're going to phrase your appeals, be really clear in terms of, well, I lost my job so that in 2020 I made $30,000, and in 2021 I'm only going to make 10. It really kind of gives us an order of magnitude of what's going on for your family. There's also a spot there for that you can ask us how much additional aid you would hope to have. We can't always meet that number, but we'll do what we can. A lot of families ask us if we'll match award letters from other schools. We don't really match award letters from other schools, but we will check in with you to make sure that everything that we have assumed from the information provided to us is correct. So, sometimes there could be a piece of information on your application that one school interprets one way and another school interprets another way. So, that could be sometimes the difference between what you might see from one school's award letter to another. So it's a conversation, whether you do it by email or you decide to make an appointment or even just call in to see if somebody's available to talk to you. We also, if any of you are going to be visiting the next couple of weekends, everybody in my office is going to be there. We're offering 25 minute spots that you can sign up for if you want to come over and speak with one of us about your situation. And we'd be happy to meet you and speak with you. There'll be a way to sign up when you register, if you are visiting. And if you're not visiting, like I said, email, call us, we'd be happy to speak with you.
Just to clarify, for the 2 admitted student open houses, it's not when you register for the day, because most of you would probably already done that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
When you check in that morning, if you want a financial aid appointment, we can sign you up during the check-in process.
Yeah,
I'm also going to put,
check-in.
that's okay. I'm also going to put a link in the chat. This is if you want to schedule a phone call with a financial aid counselor. They have probably between 8 to 15 slots a day available, all morning, afternoon, and one evening a week. So if you want to schedule a phone call, you can do that directly through that link that I put in the chat. I'm going to answer the next couple of questions. There's some questions about transferring credit for AP credits and things like that. So I'm going to assume most of you are first-year applicants and would be coming to Clark as a first-year student. We do allow students to bring in 1 semester worth of credit maximum. So that's the equivalent of 4 classes. We give credit for AP exams, 4s or 5s on the exam. If you're in an international baccalaureate program, you can get credits for 5s, 6s, or 7s on higher level exams. And if you've taken classes at a local community college or a local college, if it's an accredited college and you have grades of C or higher, those are eligible for credit. So you are maxed out at 4 courses to come in with. If you've taken more than that, the academic advising will look at that and use them for placement purposes, so you don't have to take a class that you've already taken before. You could advance to the next level if you want to continue studying that subject area. But in terms of the units that you will be awarded, it's a max of 4 units, which is equivalent for us 1 semester. If you are a transfer student, when we sent you your admit letter, it would have had a transfer credit evaluation that academic advising has already done, and it would have looked at all your courses and determined which ones are eligible for credits, and then would have anything you're currently in listed as pending credits, because we don't know the grade that you've received yet. But students can definitely get credit for work they've already done. For incoming first-year students, there's a form that you'll fill out during the summer called the Advanced Credit Request Form. And you'll indicate what AP exams you've taken, what college courses, or what you have that you're requesting credit for, and academic advising looks at that information. Jennifer, does Clark meet full need of the expected family contribution that's calculated?
So I would say for a good percentage of our students, we do meet full need. And just to define that, that's the cost of education minus the expected family contribution as calculated by Clark from the FAFSA and the profile equals need. It's a technical term for us. I think most families think about it in terms of, well, this is how much I'm going to need and enable to enable my child to go to this college. But for us, it's a technical term when we say meet full need. So for many, many families who come to Clark, we are in fact meeting full need. Our average last year, when we did the calculations for the various surveys that we do that gets information out in the public sphere, is that last year for our incoming class, we were meeting 95% of their need. So for many families, we were meeting 100%. For a few families, we were meeting a little bit less than that, but our average is 95.
Excellent. What is the difference between a subsidized and an unsubsidized Stafford loan?
Another good question. So a subsidized Stafford loan is a loan where the interest is paid by the federal government while you're enrolled in school at least half time. And that's whether you're at the undergrad or graduate level. So you could borrow that $3,500 federal direct Stafford loan that's on your award letter right now. And if you decide to go to med school and you're continuously enrolled for 8 years, or maybe even your residency as well, that $3,500 you borrowed the first year, you still only owe $3,500 on it when you graduate after doing all of that schooling. The unsubsidized loan, which is usually $2,000 for some families who don't have a lot of federal need, it might be the full $5,500 that you can borrow as a first year. But in general, most people are packaged with $2,000. It's unsubsidized, so the federal government does not pay the interest while you're in school. You have the opportunity to, your servicer will contact you at some point during your first year in school, and they'll let you know that you can pay the interest that's accruing as you go. If you're only borrowing $2,000, it's a very small amount of money, given the interest rates, which I think are in the 3s right now. Those interest rates get reset every July 1st. So you have the opportunity to pay that interest as you go, or you can capitalize it and add it to the loan that you're going to eventually be paying back later. Obviously, the least expensive way to go is to pay that small amount of interest each year. If you can. If you can't, you can go ahead and capitalize it. It just becomes a bit more expensive to pay it back later on if you're adding to that principal, and then you're waiting 4 years to start paying it back. It just becomes a little more expensive, but not very much more expensive.
Excellent. How does Clark handle financial aid with increasing costs every year? Does financial aid increase dollar for dollar, or is there some other process?
Yeah, it does not increase dollar for dollar. We're not able to do that at this point. Keep in mind, you are resubmitting the FAFSA every year. So we do, as if your situation changes, you have more income, less income, more assets, less assets, more children in school, less children in school. We will make some changes to your need-based aid based on all those changes. Typically, in each year, if everything in your file remained the same and you had the same exact same family contribution from one year to the next, we typically would make up a portion of the change of tuition, room and board, a portion of what's charged each year. So we might increase your grant by $700-800, something like that, if your tuition went up, 1,000. Now keep in mind, if you're only receiving a merit scholarship, that remains flat each year. We don't increase that for a change to tuition, room and board from year to year.
Excellent. How much money can students expect to earn through an on-campus job?
So our in Massachusetts, the minimum wage, I believe, is going to be $15. If it's not already, it's very close to being $15 right now. And students are, it's suggested that you work no more than 10 hours a week, but you can work up to 20 hours a week. I wouldn't recommend that as a first semester student because you're getting used to a new academic scene, a new social scene, being away from home sometimes for the first time. So, trying to juggle all that and work 20 hours a week is a little bit more than it feels like it's a lot to ask of a first semester student going to any school. So please plan on coming to school with a little bit of money to kind of tide you over. Also, as I mentioned, you might not have a job day one. So you're going to need to have some money in your, at your disposal, if you can, to kind of tide you over until you can start getting those paychecks. But in general, if your first semester, if you can keep it down to 10 hours, no more than 10 hours, Some students do find a couple different jobs and earn more than the $3,000 that federal work study students have listed in their award. Federal work study students can actually do that as well. You're not really limited to the 3,000 federal work study. It's just that when you hit that federal work study limit, we'll just automatically change your job to a non-work study funding. You'll still have the same job. It's just where the money's coming from to pay you. So be realistic with yourself about how many hours you want to work that first semester.
Excellent. If a student receives outside scholarships from local organizations, can they be stacked on the Clark Merit Scholarship and need-based grants, or will we reduce the need-based grants?
So you have merit scholarships. Any outside scholarships you get can, yes, be stacked on. In other words, they will go to pay your bill directly, so it helps reduce what you're going to owe each semester. If you have need-based scholarships, the news is just about as good, honestly. We have a really generous policy. If you are one of those families that has a little bit of unmet need, we will let that outside scholarship meet that unmet need, which means that money goes directly to pay your bill. And then we'll allow it to reduce your work study. Keep in mind, you can still work elsewhere on campus you can still work on campus without work study. So again, that money would go to pay your bill. You could then also choose to reduce some of your loans if you wanted to, so that you had less indebtedness after you finish your education. So basically, if sometimes we have students who have such large outside scholarships, so like maybe a Gates Millennium or one of those really large outside scholarships. Sometimes when it's a really large one, after we've we've filled the unmet need, and after we've reduced the work study, and after we've reduced the loans, we have no choice, given that we're doing a math equation. We have no choice but to reduce need-based grant. But I typically will make a bit of a note in the file and then check the next year. And if that happened, I'll try to make it. Most students only get outside scholarships, for the first year. And the second year, if you're not getting those outside scholarships, I may enrich your grant a little bit by the amount that I had to reduce it the first year. That only happens like 2 or 3 times a year. And that really only happens if you have outside scholarships that are like in excess of $8,000 or $10,000.
Jennifer, this might be more of a question for student accounts, but I'm going to ask it in case you know. Does Clark offer tuition insurance to purchase?
I think it does. I didn't realize this
also,
earlier. But... Yeah. So there will be, if you go over on to the student accounts website, even though it's, geared towards this year, there's lots of good information you can find there. And I would encourage you to do that. And I do believe that there is an insurance option there that you can look into. And it honestly, especially after everything everybody through the country has been through the last few years, not a bad idea to have it if if it's something that's within your ability to do.
All right. Can families use 529 plans to help pay their bill at Clark?
Oh yes, of course. You just have to, and I don't work in student accounts, so I don't know all the ins and outs, but I believe you have to make the arrangements for the 529 plan to send the check to Clark. Sometimes it's a check that has to be signed by both you and Clark, and in that case, we'll let you know how to manage that. But yes, you would just need to check with your plan and follow their instructions for initiating that payment.
Excellent. How much does tuition and board tend to increase each year?
So it does vary a little bit. Some years it goes up very little in response to maybe something that's going on, countrywide or worldwide. But typically it can go up anywhere between 2.5% to maybe 4%. And there really is no sort of, we don't plan that out, 3, 4, 5 years in advance. It really is a year-to-year decision that the folks in the finance department and the board of trustees do research and make the decision about what it's going to be from year to year. You do get notified via email, the parents and the students each year when that decision is made. So typically we release that information in March each year.
Are the earnings from work study and non-work study jobs taxable? Are they taxed on what they earn?
So the earnings from both are taxable if the student earns the minimum amount of money each year that you have to earn before you have to start paying taxes. So what that amount is from each year is typically, in the first couple of pages of the booklets that or the online version of the booklets that the IRS publishes. But typically, I think you have to earn something over 4,000, and I could be old information, but it's somewhere north of $4,000 before you have to pay taxes, unless you're self-employed, and then you have to pay taxes earlier. But that wouldn't apply in this situation. So it's not. So if you earn less than that, you're not paying taxes on it. You will be given the opportunity to fill out tax-related paperwork when you apply for your job. So you'll want to, consult with someone about how to fill that out. Basically, what that paperwork does is tell the people in the payroll office how much withholding to do based on whether you think you're going to have to pay taxes or not. Well, and also for people who do, the one perk about having federal work study is that if you do have federal work study, any earnings that you earned under federal work study are not included in the calculation of your income when you do your FAFSA the following year. So that income does kind of disappear from that calculation of that next year's expected family contribution. So there is a bit of a benefit there.
I'm going to take the next one. The student is considering taking a gap year, and can the merit scholarships be deferred for a year? Yes. If a student wants to defer their enrollment, they do have to pay the $250 enrollment deposit to secure their place at Clark. They have to fill out an online defer request form that you can get from your admissions counselor that just outlines the plans. And we will approve almost any defer plan. Most students are doing it to do volunteer work, to travel, a combination of those kind of things. The only thing we will not approve is a request to enroll at another school for a year and then come to Clark as a sophomore. Students have to reapply as a transfer student. We do occasionally get that request. But if they want to do traditional gap year programs, like I said, volunteering, working, travel, those kind of things, those would all be eligible for a deferment. And if a student defers, their merit scholarship defers with them. If the student has need-based aid, they do have to reapply for the need-based aid, because like Jennifer said, you're going to do that process every year because it's dependent on the family's circumstances at that time. But merit scholarship will automatically defer along with the student's enrollment. And we have reached the end of the questions. Jennifer, nice job. I want to thank all of you for your thoughtful questions, for spending 45 minutes with us this evening. Please reach out if you do have more questions. Both the admissions and financial aid email addresses are on the screen right now. We are here and happy to help. We know that this can be a stressful process. This can be a confusing process. And we want to help you through that process. Whether the end result is coming to Clark or not, we certainly hope it is coming to Clark. But no matter what the final choice is, we are here to help you. So please reach out. Definitely, if you haven't visited, we hope you'll come see campus for yourself. I know some of you are from far away, so that might not be as reasonable. But if you can come to campus, we would love to see you in person. But again, thank you so much for spending some time today. Jennifer, do you have any parting words of wisdom?
You guys asked great questions, so I think you'll do really well. You really did.
All right. Have a great night, everyone.